Good afternoon and welcome to the Pittsburgh Land Bank Board of Directors meeting for Friday, January 10th at 1 o'clock. The first thing we asked if Nathan, who's helping to support us today, if he would please call the roll.
Reverend Burgess?
Here.
Dr. Bay?
Here.
Dr. Lager?
Here.
Demonte Walker?
Here.
Senator Fontana?
Here.
Councilwoman Cale Smith? Councilman Lavelle?
Here.
Steve Mazza?
Here.
Wanda Wilson?
Here.
Thank you. All members are present.
Thank you very much. First order of business is public comment. Members of the public who want to address this Land Bank Board of Directors will be given 3 minutes. Please start off with either your name and your address or your area of the city of which you live. And the green light means the beginning of the 3 minutes. The yellow light means you have 1 minute to summarize. The red light means your time has expired. Please relinquish the podium. First speaker, please. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joanna Deming. I'm the Executive Director for Fineview and Perry Hilltop Citizens Council. Thank you for being here and for your commitment to the Land Bank. The Land Bank is potentially an amazing tool for our communities. I was at the Housing Alliance maybe 10 years ago, and we were pushing for this to get it created, so I'm super excited it exists, and I will be thrilled when I see it really moving and shaking and making change in our community. I'm here today to speak about the relationship between the Land Bank and the Vacant Property Reserve that the PCRG has been managing with the city all these years. There's been some recommendations that PCRG has provided to the Land Bank that you guys will have an opportunity to review, and I wanted to encourage you to accept those recommendations. The tool, the Vacant Property Land Reserve, has been really the only way, one of the only ways for us to acquire property as a community group and to do it affordably. Given how much work these buildings need, doing it affordably is critical. Whatever we aren't able to, if we're not able to get an affordable acquisition price, the amount of subsidy we have to get is that much greater. So it just helps on the front end to get that low acquisition price. In Fineview and Perry Hilltop, we have a lot going on. A couple years ago, we created a community plan. We knocked on every door in our community. What we heard from people is fix these vacant houses, make sure people don't get displaced in the process. We are working on a 5-year housing plan right now that's nearly finished as well, and we just know that the Land Bank could be such a critical piece of us and being able to implement this plan, and we don't want it to be a hurdle. We don't want it to create more opportunities for people that aren't doing things in line with our goals to act. So I want to encourage you to help us move equitable development forward in our community by accepting these vacant property, these recommendations from the Property Reserve Committee, and providing some policies that the public can comment on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Lucas Bagshaw. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Fineview and Perry Hilltop Citizens Council. I'd like to echo some of what our Executive Director has said. First off, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak and reiterate that our communities, they face a crisis. We have an abundance of vacant properties, and at the same time, we have a lack of access to affordable housing. I would like to express the importance of preserving the community priority and pricing within the Pittsburgh Property Reserve. These tools have been vital to us as a neighborhood organization. Access to recycled property allows us to advance our affordable housing options, while providing the discount pricing has been key to enabling us to develop that affordable housing. So we strongly ask that you do accept the vacant property working group's suggestions, and I thank you for this time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. My name is Gabrielle De Marchi, and I'm the Community Development Coordinator at Operation Better Block in Homewood. Also wanted to echo what these two have been saying. For years, Homewood has struggled with blight. There are roughly 600 abandoned homes and buildings and about 2,000 overgrown and unmaintained vacant lots, just a portion of the 24,000 vacant properties and parcels in the city of Pittsburgh. A large portion of these are obviously tax delinquent, which is costing the city millions of dollars every year, $9 million to be precise, and it is adding to the stark disenfranchisement the Homewood community has felt and expressed for decades. Operation Better Block has always actively used the property reserve process to acquire tax delinquent vacant parcels and abandoned homes that are then transformed into play yards for the neighborhood and newly renovated affordable homes for families and individuals. In December of 2018, Operation Better Block received funding that has allowed us to build and execute a robust homeownership program. Those who participate in our homeownership program must be at or below 50% of the area median income, and along the way they receive financial counseling and credit repair if needed. We have roughly 40 people going through that process right now. In November of 2019, we completed and sold our first home to a family of 4 who has been a longtime Homewood resident and has been looking to make the next step into homeownership. The house that we sold them came to us through the property reserve. In April of 2013, Operation Better Block requested the property go through the treasurer's sale and reserve process. It wasn't until December of 2016 did we actually gain title of that property. While it did work out for that one property, we still have a handful sitting in the reserve stagnant. This round of funding we received requires that we rehab and resell 4 homes by the end of 2020, which we are actively working on now. As we continue to grow our homeownership program, our goal is to expand and to be able to complete 12 rehab to resales every year. With 600 abandoned homes and buildings in Homewood, OBB is in dire need of an active, functioning, and flowing land recycling entity to accomplish our goals. Not only is our homeownership program providing safe and healthy homes to families and individuals that may be considered vulnerable and economically disadvantaged, but we're also restoring tax revenue, eliminating and reducing public safety burdens, and increasing property value in the neighborhood. Through the Vacant Property Working Group with PCRG, we support the Pittsburgh Property Reserve with requiring tax delinquent property currently. We support the Pittsburgh, and we suggest they are implemented as soon as possible. We support and agree that keeping community groups' preference ensures that recycled land is then transferred into a community-focused projects. We look forward to staff being hired so the land bank can actively run smoothly and the Pittsburgh Property Reserve's recommendations being accepted, and for a fully funded and functioning land bank to successfully take over the transition into being the land recycling entity the city of Pittsburgh needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Reese. I'm from Hazelwood Initiative. I'm real estate and project manager. Thank you for an opportunity to speak. Thank you for your work on the land bank thus far. I echo the sentiments of my other colleagues who also do community development work. Hazelwood Initiative also has an extremely robust affordable homeownership program. Many of the properties that we acquire through the property reserve. Rather than give you all the statistics, which you already know, of blight in our neighborhood, I thought I would share with you a real model of what we've done with the properties that we've gained from the reserve. We are currently ready to break ground within the next few weeks on a total of 6 properties that all were acquired through the reserve. All 6 of them will be complete rehabs. We are fully funded for nearly a $200,000 subsidy for each of the homes because they are in such poor condition. One of the things that we are recommending that PCRG's recommendations be accepted as well is just to adopt the recommendations from PCRG, as well as expedite the process, making sure we have a fully functional land bank in place before we transition from the property reserve. However, just wanted to let you know that these 6 properties that we will be doing, they are fully funded. They will be reserved for the nearly 221 residents we currently have on our affordable homeownership program. All of the houses will be reserved for between 50 and 80% AMI. They will be completed by spring of this year. I'm sorry, spring of 2021. and all be affordable. So on behalf of Hazelwood Initiative, my director Sonia Tillman and our real estate director David Bruton, I would ask that you accept the Property Reserve Committee recommendations, hire land bank staff, and fully fund the program. We wholeheartedly support PPR's Modernization Committee recommendations and suggest the implementations be accepted ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Gordon Davidson. I'm the Executive Director of the Mount Washington Community Development Corporation. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say what I'm going to say. I'm going to read from my notes. In 2013, I learned about the City of Pittsburgh Property Reserve when I served on the Land Bank and Blight Remediation Subcommittee of the Mayor-elect's transition team. The reserve was a critical local economic development tool in 2013 when I did that, and it still is in 2020. The reserve is especially important for community development corporations, even small CDCs like Mount Washington Community Development Corporation. The reserve and the land bank is so important to MWCDC that is directly referenced in our strategic plan. Since 2013, when MWCDC became quite active in the reserve enabled us to create 5 low and moderate income homes and remediate 7 vacant lots, 2 of which were active neighborhood dump sites. MWCDC's Grace Street Blight Remediation Program of 2007 through 2019 was made possible through participation in the reserve. With the reserve, MWCDC can even consider permanent affordable housing projects. We also use the reserve on behalf of the Hilltop Alliance in the Allentown neighborhood, and Aaron Suknik might be speaking about that. When I was hired in 2018, MWCDC had 37 properties in the reserve. MWCDC now has 16 properties in the reserve, which means that taxes are being paid on 21 more properties in Mount Washington and Allentown today than were being paid in 2018. I want to emphasize that. That's 16 properties. These were tax delinquent properties that the private sector did not want to purchase at market rates, whatever those market rates were. In fact, there's evidence that MWCDC has purchased properties through the reserve that have become tax delinquent twice under different private sector owners. But CDCs shouldn't just have the right to nominate properties to the reserve that are entirely rejected by the private sector. Selling a tax delinquent property to the private sector at a discount may put that property on the tax rolls, but the transaction doesn't necessarily result in a benefit to the community, as I've just referred to regarding the properties that were tax delinquent twice. The reserve enables CDCs to address housing inadequacies and inequalities and blight remediation, which are all market failures not addressed by the private sector. Because of this, and with the proper processes in play, nonprofits should receive a priority for acquiring tax delinquent properties through the reserve process at a discounted and fair price and with clear title. The reserve isn't perfect. I don't think there is anyone here who says it is. But MWCDC strongly believes that the reserve is a small tool that the city should always have in its local economic development toolkit. Although to MWCDC, the reserve is more like a heavy-duty Swiss Army knife that solves and should continue to solve many problems in Mount Washington, Duquesne Heights, and other neighborhoods throughout the city. So my comments were solely about the property reserve, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Walls. I'm the founder and executive director of an organization called Amani Christian Community Development, located in the Hill District, City of Pittsburgh. I'm also a PCRG board member. I'm here to speak on what I call a social justice issue, and that issue is that the majority of the vacant property that is within the City of Pittsburgh is primarily in low-income areas, from east and Homewood to west, and of course in the Hill District and to the north side. This is unfortunate. but one of the tools that we've been able to use over the years, and I remember being in the old warehouse with the late Aggie Bros and Stanley Lowe to form PCRG. And one of the tools that we've been able to use over the years is the land reserve. It's been an important tool in the minority community. We have been able to take a lot of the vacant property that has not been developed and to develop it. Specifically in our particular community, we took a number of vacant parcels on one of the streets in the Upper Hill, and we were able to bring 13 for sale new homes on those vacant properties. It stabilized that street, it stabilized that community, and one of the great tools that we were able to use was the land reserve. So I'm here to ask that you would take under consideration and put into practicality the committee's recommendations. But secondly, I want you to do this because I don't want Philadelphia to have an upside on us here in Pittsburgh. If they can get one running, we ought to be able to get one running. So let's staff it, let's fund it, let's make it workable and practical so that community groups all across this city can utilize this tool. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Is this working again? Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Suknik. I'm the Executive Director of the Hilltop Alliance in South Pittsburgh. I'm here today to encourage your board to maintain the nonprofit preference in both the property reserve as it is now and in the land bank. If we're to compete with private buyers and pay fair market value, the entire community development system in Pittsburgh will not be able to advance community goals for redevelopment and affordable housing. The Hilltop Alliance completed a housing strategy with some of our respective communities in 2013 and have since been implementing it with funding dedicated for the Allentown neighborhood. In the Hilltop's Allentown neighborhood, we're focused on one 4x5 block area, and in 2015 began using the property reserve to acquire all the eligible vacant houses and buildable lots, almost 50 total. Our first two properties in this area, homes that had been vacant and abandoned for over 10 years, were fully renovated and sold to home buyers for between $100,000 and $150,000 working with private developers. But we're also partnering with PHDC to complete 12 affordable rehabs for resale in 2020. This past November, we submitted a LIHTC application to build 29 new single-family scattered site units on 31 vacant lots in the same focus area of the neighborhood, all acquired through the property reserve. And throughout all this, we've worked with current property owners in the same 4x5 block radius to resolve over 80 code issues and provide home repair assistance to almost 20 LMI homeowners. Without continued community nonprofit preference, this layered approach cannot be replicated in other South Pittsburgh neighborhoods who are asking for our help. And building single-family affordable housing on vacant lots, as you know, is already pretty expensive. But what makes it possible is both our control of enough properties within a designated area and inexpensive acquisition costs, both which are enabled by community nonprofit preference. So eliminating our ability to do this would bring on a couple questions. What's the point of even doing community housing plans? Because without disposition criteria that gives preference to community nonprofits, the community priorities take a backseat in favor of the highest bidder. And how much more subsidy is the city URA, Housing Opportunity Fund, willing to provide us to now cover these higher acquisition costs? Increasing the cost of property acquisition through fair market value will only require more subsidy, or will mean higher rents and higher sale prices. So perhaps most important, though, is eliminating the community nonprofit preference would close the door for communities who may not have organizations like these doing this work today, but may aspire to in the future. So lastly, I just ask this board to please consider those, and also to please adopt the recommendations of the committee regarding the property reserve continuing to function. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Malik Morris. I'm the manager of community engagement for the Larmer Consensus Group, and we're here in collaboration with PCRG and the Vacant Property Working Group. Larmer Consensus Group is a recognized community organization that works with and for the people of Larmer. Our mission includes, but is not limited to, economic growth, sustainable development, greening, affordable housing, and community empowerment. Larmer is a community in the east end of the city of Pittsburgh that has 345 homeowners, 389 renters, 56 vacant owners of property, and approximately 566 vacant lots. Vacant lots have become advertisement that no one is concerned with the community or what occurs in the community. We are a designated HUD choice neighborhood and have completed phases 1 and 2 of the process that include a total of 247 units of housing. Phase 3 and 4 will add an additional 87 units to the community with completion slated for 2021. Crime is down to the point where theft from unlocked vehicles is our biggest concern. We're working with other community stakeholders on a comprehensive public safety plan to continue this trend as the community grows. We have a desire to see the land bank serve its purpose to spur development on the vacant lots of Larmer. We understand that those wishing to build must have the financial means. However, we want to be assured that land bank staff are hired and funding is secured. We have implemented a housing and land use committee that navigates the vacant properties and vacant homeowners to redevelop affordable and market rate housing. We're hopeful this will move the process forward and we can continue to develop Larmer to meet this mission of the community plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Clare Keeley. I'm with the Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group. I want to begin by thanking Councilman Burgess and the Land Bank Board for the opportunity to speak today and for taking so much time listening to our fellow community group members and hearing their testimony as well. For over 20 years, PCRG has worked with our nonprofit members, many of whom have obviously spoken today, to transfer hundreds of vacant and blighted properties into productive community serving use through the property reserve. As everyone has mentioned, by utilizing the reserve, our members have contributed not only to the revitalization of their communities, but they have generated millions of dollars to the city in the form of increased tax revenue and reduced costs. Key positive elements of the reserve, primarily community group preference and low cost, have enabled our members to provide this incredible service to the city and their communities throughout the years. As the Land Bank considers how to proceed in taking over the property reserve process from the city, we urge you to maintain these essential elements. However, many aspects of the current process, which is notably lengthy and difficult to navigate, must be improved. The Pittsburgh Land Bank can overcome current challenges with the system thanks to advantages like its unique priority bid power, expedited quiet title powers, and its ability to unify the process of property tax collection with that of land recycling under one comprehensive system, which I'm sure you all know. So the Land Bank offers this really great chance to leverage the great work that's already being done by all of these community groups and improve the process so we can start making a real dent and recycling the over 20,000 vacant properties in our city. To that end, we, along with our members, echo their urging for the board to adopt the Property Reserve Modernization Committee's recommendations. We also urge the Land Bank to ensure the Property Reserve transition process is smooth, deliberate, and does not include a break in operation. Finally, we know we need a staffed and properly capitalized land bank for the property reserve to be successfully transitioned. Access to land is the foundation of rebuilding communities, lives, and opportunities. Our organizations take this to heart in our everyday missions and remain committed to bringing an accessible, equitable, and community-focused land bank to Pittsburgh. We stand ready to assist the Land Bank Board, however possible, in developing and adopting a solid community process with the Land Bank. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please. Are there any other speakers? Seeing no other speakers, we will move into the rest of our agenda. The minutes are in front of you. I will now entertain a motion to approve the December minutes. Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Second of all, we have the chairman's report, which is except mine. We have talked about this, and we are going to recommend to the board that we hire an interim director. This interim director will help guide the land bank from now until we find a permanent successor. And so for that, I would entertain a motion. Our recommendation, having talked, and hopefully I'm doing this the right way, is that we have, I am forwarding the name of Mr. Paul Lager to be our interim executive director. I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved. Second.
Second, is there any discussion on the selection? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Mr. Lager, congratulations. You are the Land Bank's interim executive director. Now, because of that, he has to resign from our board of directors, and as such,
There's my resignation.
thank you very much. It is in my hand, received and accepted. That also makes the land bank minus an officer. And so I also want to recommend to the board that Councilman Daniel Lavelle become the treasurer of the land bank board, and I would entertain such a motion. I need a second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Mr. Lavelle, thank you very much for your willingness to serve. All right, so that takes us to the director's update. Mr. Clark.
URA is ready to support interim director Lager. We have an office for him at our new building at 412 Boulevard of the Allies. We look forward to working with him on some of the items that are on the agenda today.
Thank you very much. In that same vein, I had a chance to tour the offices yesterday. I am extraordinarily jealous. It's all glass and windows and light and airy, and I'm not sure. I was teasing, saying it feels like I'm in Google, right? All you need is the ping pong tables and the hockey. They're coming, right? Everything else you have. And so congratulations. I saw the space. It's excellent space for us, and so we look forward to using that space. All right, so we have a financial report, although he is no longer treasurer. He can still, I think, oversee our financials. Mr. Lager.
Thank you. First thing is to have a motion to pay $171.72 to the Courier for advertising, legal advertising for our meetings. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Thank you very much. Next.
The 2020 budget is not in front of you for a reason. I would like to see if I can find some alternate types of revenue for the revenue section of the budget over the next month, and also get a firmer sense of what legal costs are by looking toward the results of, is it an RFP, an RFI, what is it?
RFQ.
It's an RFQ, okay, for firms or people to do title searches and clearances. We will know that by next meeting, and I can put a budget together based on those figures. If I did it now, I'd just be guessing on everything that we're going to spend on legal, and I would have only $163,000 in carryover from last year, so I'd like to look for some other sources of income.
In addition, it is my understanding that there have been ongoing conversations with the foundation community, and some of those conversations we believe can be finished and completed by the next board meeting. So it will be a lot more clear as to what our possible funding sources are. All right, for that, there is no need for a motion. That takes us to the inventory report. Ms. Clark.
I actually don't have anything further than what Director Lager just mentioned, Interim Director Lager mentioned.
Thank you very much. That takes us to the Property Reserve Committee. Director Wilson.
Thank you. As we discussed last meeting, I incorporated all the final comments from the members of the Property Reserve 2.0 committee, which were all very helpful, and produced a draft that's dated December 20th, which is in your packet. And I recommend that the Land Bank Board adopt those. That process recommendations for transitioning the operations of the Property Reserve to the Land Bank.
So I think that we're going to do this in 2 steps. Teresa, Ms.
I'd just like to add my comments to that. I heard the comments from the public. The president report, again, this is very heavily in favor of CDC and not necessarily individuals. And that's been a concern that we've heard individually from our residents, is that they want the same opportunity not that connected or not that supported. So I'm going to continue to address that issue and make sure that our residents feel that they have the same opportunity.
Okay. So we're going to my recommendation, and we can have conversations on the recommendation of the process to go forward. I think the first thing is we're going to receive this report. This report is not bylaws or rules or that are binding on the land bank yet. This report has to be transformed into policy that specifically is land bank policy. And so what I'm going to suggest the process, and I've said this to whoever asked, so I want to say it publicly, is that we will accept these recommendations. From these recommendations, we will draft specific land bank policies. We will then give those policies back to the public for their review, and then we will finally approve them. So that's the process. We will use these recommendations as the guideline to draft specific rules and regulations. Those.
We talk to our residents individually, attend our meetings, and we inform residents. Otherwise, it would be very one-sided, like we do every time we want to pass something, we call CDC, we call the nonprofit, call the district money, or property, or whatever, or the city of Pittsburgh, and ask for their opinion. They review the draft, so our general residents have all goes on city council.
So once we have the, yeah, sure, of course, because again, we will always work with you and follow your guidance, so that we can have a thorough, ongoing, comprehensive community engagement process. But today, we're simply going to accept the recommendation. We're going to accept the report coming from the Property Reserve so that we can move forward with the URA to actually draft tangible, specific land bank policy. All right, is there such a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Are we still going to have the opportunity to add input?
Yes.
With the policy?
Yes.
After we're just accepting this?
Yes.
Sort of,
Yes,
okay.
we're accepting this as their recommendation to us. We will turn that recommendation into policy, and then we'll have another bite of the apple to adopt it, to amend it, to change it, to get community feedback, community participation.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, it would be helpful, I think, for all of especially those who are here today giving testimony on this and have worked so hard on and the committee members themselves, if we could adopt the recommendations with the knowledge that any policy and procedures would be consistent with those recommendations. I think is what you're saying, but I think it would be very helpful if we clarify that.
Well,
and
I
make
don't-
that very, very clear.
What
that
is-
when we're having input on them, any input would be the very detailed transaction about how things are going to work, how the procedures would work, but it's consistent with what's in the document that's been vetted.
I have no problem with adopting the recommendations. What I don't want to do is give the recommendations the force of law. I do not want to do that at this point. So I would prefer to accept the report, because I am unclear. I have not talked to the attorney. I am unclear what conflicts there may be from the recommendations to other things we may want to consider. So that's what makes my hesitancy, right? Because I want to give the those who are going to actually draft them, making sure there is no inherent contradictions. And so I would prefer to receive the report from the committee with the knowledge that we're pretty much going to follow those recommendations. And again, I promise to bring back the final rules and regulations prior to its passage and give the public apt time to comment and to lobby or to advocate for their position. So there's no need. Am I being clear about?
Yeah, I have two related questions.
Sure.
So in the ideal circumstance, under the way you're explaining it, what's the timeline for this? And in the meantime, what's the status of the property reserve in the interim?
Nathan, that's a you question, I think.
Answering the second one first, I believe the property reserve will continue to operate in its current form. The answer to the second, or your first question, is we'll work with Director Lager to set up a time frame to get those drafted.
Until then, it's as is.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question.
Well, one thing is that there are contracts with all the CDCs in place for properties that are already in the reserve, and I don't think those are viable. So I don't think we could just scrap those.
That is correct. No, those
contracts.
Those are not voidable.
Is there a document detailing the recommendations that came from the vacant property working group, or are they encapsulated in these? It's the same. It's one and the same.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if they were responding to what we have before us, or if what we have before us is capturing their response.
There is.
Yeah, it's the same.
There's everything. There, unfortunately, I think, having had some private conversations, there was some belief that the land bank was going to create a radically different process without community input. That fear, although not based in fact or in our process, got communicated to the public. And so what you hear, although nicely spoken, was a fear of that action. That is not the case, right? It is, one of the things is when you form a new entity, as we are doing now, on the fly, you have to give it some flexibility, right? We have to make sure that we do not lock in unintentionally things that bring the land bank into conflict with the city of Pittsburgh or the URA or the housing authority. And so you don't want, we do not have the capacity yet to thoroughly vet these recommendations to make sure it does not do that. We can, over time, make sure this does not do this and then bring it back so that if there's something that is, poisonous or unacceptable, we can have that conversation. So this is not any attempt. I think the opposite. I think what we should do, not the opposite, I think it's not opposites and. I think we should create, as I've said, the final rules and regulations of the land bank and have a thorough education and community process about that finalized proposal. Before its passage. Before its passage. We're going to write them, design them, and have a public process, and then vote them in that order. Does that make sense? Okay, good.
I think it's also helpful to note that this is specifically the property reserve, and there would still be lots of other procedures that we'll still need as a land bank for anything that's not in the property reserve.
That part's also true. Any other conversation? If no other conversation, I'll accept the motion to receive the report coming from the Property Reserve Committee. Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Communications Committee? Nay, one nay. Duly noted. Thank you very much, Madam President. That takes us to the Communications Committee. Dr. Bay is its chair.
The Communications Committee did not meet over the holiday break. We are still looking at the opportunity for the website, waiting to sort of see how the public will use it and how it will. I guess we're going to need some new investment into the website once we do understand how the land bank will be used and how communities and the public can access it. And so we want to make sure that we're mindful of that the website that we have is not going to be sufficient once we are a working land bank.
Thank you very much. Next thing is the legislative and regulatory update before I give some final words. Senator Fontano.
Thank you. The Senate hasn't gone back into session. It won't go back till the end of the month, and then the budget hearings or budget proposals in first week of February by the governor, and then it's hearings after that. So there's not going to be a whole lot of legislation being moved. I do want to throw out one thing though on all this. If the Senate and the House, for that matter, does policy committee hearings, we have the ability to. And one of the things about the land bank or the reserve and all is title, and we've been talking about title when somebody mentioned it, how difficult it is to get title, how long it takes to get title. These are, if there's a way to expedite, I think that's also something we should explore, because as it's taken all the time, and we're going to have some more time now on this, and hopefully quickly, to go through this, we have the ability to have a hearing, gather from all over the state what other people do to try to expedite title. So I'm just throwing it out there for food for thought. I'm happy to convene from the Senate some sort of policy committee hearing here in Pittsburgh. We can bring folks from wherever in to talk about title or talk about land banks or talk about any of this stuff. I'm just putting it out there. We can do it in the spring, we can do it in the summer, we can do it or not do it at all. But I'm just putting it out there that there's an opportunity. We have that ability to bring people to the table. That sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already out there someplace. And if you want a hearing on that sort of thing in Pittsburgh, I'm happy to.
I think we'll take you up on that offer, Senator.
Thank you.
I think it's excellent. All right, so let's talk about moving forward, and then I'll take anything else from members. So there are two or three things that we will do very, very quickly. The first thing is that I will meet with the new interim director and a representative of the URA to clearly lay out some action agendas for the next 3 months. So we will be moving very, very quickly over the next 3 months. And so I will, after talking to them about that agenda, I will share it with board members so that we're all transparent as to how we're going to move this land bank. The second thing is we will talk to them about hiring additional staff. I think we're going to need some kind of support staff in addition to Mr. Lager and the URA, and that is exclusive to the land bank. And so our sort of organizational chart calls for a second person. And so I'm going to sort of try to see if we can expedite that process and get a second person on board. We have the space for them over at the building. We have the office now. We have, I don't think there's computers up there yet, but they're coming. And so I think we need but administrative supports, probably a full-time administrative support person that will support the URA and Mr. Lager in moving the land bank forward. And then finally, to those who have come to speak to us, we are extraordinarily grateful for your participation and your voice, and we want to reassure you, number one, the land bank is one of the top priorities of the mayor. It was his first legislative investment when he became mayor. And number two, this council and this chairman is extraordinarily committed to the land bank and was the author of land bank legislation prior to this legislation hitting the table. Some of you may not know that I was the first person to begin this process of starting a land bank in Pittsburgh. And so we will continue to advocate for it. The whole reason for the land bank is to, in my opinion, is to provide affordable housing and particular housing in distressed communities and providing them with economic revitalization. And so we do understand the importance of the tool. We will put that as a priority, and hopefully it'll be something that all of us can use effectively. And so with that, I'll take on any other conversations that members have. If no conversations, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. We are adjourned.